Hi, I'm Lisa Fletcher, and you're in the stream. Today, Malaysia's Prime Minister has called Sunday's upcoming vote the first social media election. With the internet becoming a major battleground, we'll examine how social media is influencing the political discourse. As always, our digital producer, Malika Bilal, is here looking out for your live feedback. Malika, as Malaysia gets ready for these general elections, social media has been a really strong tool of campaigning.
You're right, definitely. And Malaysians say that social media has opened up an avenue for conversation, a new one that wasn't there before. And it's that very topic that sparked a heated back and forth debate among our community members. There's a tweet here from JMO who says, the line between social media activism and belligerence is now very thin and blurry, citing the problem with social media. But he gets a response from Charmaine, who says that is unfortunately a consequence of free social media. We should hence also be wise to differentiate fact from fiction. But of course, this is a live conversation, so whether you're in Malaysia or elsewhere, tweet us your comments and your questions with hashtag AJStream.
And to Malika's right is Pek Kun Heng. She is an assistant professor at American University and the director of the ASEAN Studies Center. Pek Kun, welcome to the stream.
Thank you for having me.
We are very glad to have you. And for more on Malaysia's elections, be sure to check out Al Jazeera's Spotlight page. That includes the latest news and information surrounding the country's 13th general election.
My name is Jeffrey Ellinger, and I'm a writer in Minneapolis, and I'm in the stream.
On Sunday, Malaysians will head to the polls for what's being projected to be the tightest election race since independence. One party has ruled Malaysia since that time, about 50 years ago. The United Malays National Organization, or the UMNO, the biggest party within the ruling National Front coalition. Their leader and current Prime Minister is Najib Razak, son of Malaysia's second Prime Minister and the nephew of its third. But with allegations of fraud, including trading votes for citizenship, ongoing corruption, as well as affirmative action policies favoring Malays over ethnic Chinese and Indians, Razak is facing the most serious challenge yet, led by the opposition's Anwar Ibrahim. Ibrahim has championed reforms and an end to the country's race-based system that's resulted in the increasing wealth of ethnic Malays at the expense of Malaysians of Chinese and Indian descent, who are regarded as second-class citizens. In recent years, the web has become a major election battleground between the opposition and the ruling party, so much so that the Prime Minister called this election the country's first social media election. And here's why. Malaysia ranks 6th worldwide in terms of information production on Twitter, according to the Oxford Internet Institute. And Facebook users have increased there by more than 12 million in just the last 5 years. And since the opposition has been denied access to government-controlled traditional media, they've turned to social media to express their anger with Malaysia's current political and economic structure. Now, as debates continue online, today we're going to take a look at how social media is influencing political campaigning and discourse in Malaysia. Could this so-called first social media election end one of the world's longest-serving governments and change Malaysia's race-based politics? To help us answer this question, we are joined from Kuala Lumpur by Tun Faisal Ismail Aziz, the chairman of the New Media Unit for the UMNO Youth Organization. Tun Faisal, welcome to the stream. We're also going to be joined by Nick Nazmi, the communications director for the PRK. Actually, we were going to be joined by Nick, but due to an urgent last-minute situation, he is not able to be with us today. But we are also joined by a number of young Malaysians. They're going to take part in our discussion in just a moment. But first, Pek Kun, I want to start with you. As we mentioned, this is supposed to be the closest election in Malaysia's history, with the opposition having its best chance ever to unseat the incumbent government. Talk about what you think is leading to such a close campaign, and really if it's about support for the opposition or if this is just more about Malaysians being tired of business as usual.
It's both.
Yeah.
You know, it is support for the opposition and also Malaysians tired of business as usual. On the other hand, if you look at it's the most closely fought race. And the numbers show that, you know, if the ruling party win or the opposition win, it's going to be a very, very narrow margin. However, you know, and as you know, when I crunch the numbers carefully, I see that, you know, despite this cacophony of voices in the social media, and one thing that has changed this time compared to 2008 is that the ruling party has got into the social media fight as well. Mm-hmm. They did not. They were caught flat-footed in 2008, and the opposition had the field to itself. And so, since they've responded, and now they are joining those voices. So it's become gripping, it's exciting, but we need to stand back from it and just, stand aside from the voices. In order for the opposition to win, they must add 30 more seats to what they have, to the 82 they have, to have a simple majority of 112. So, I've been from the social media, but then I decided to just step back, see where are they going to get these 30 seats, and it's going to be really tough. And the reason why is this: in 2008, there were 3 swing votes from 3 important sources. One was the non-Malay vote. It was a big swing from the Chinese and the Indians to the opposition. The second one was a youth vote, and the youth vote represented the social media in 2008, so that was an important swing. And the third one is the urban vote. So they have to then, in a sense, those votes, the non-Malay vote, the Chinese vote has been maxed out. Because, in the last election, they captured 15 of the 16 seats where Chinese formed 60% of the constituency. So they've maxed out on the Chinese vote, and if we look at the Indian votes, they've gone back to the ruling party.
And a little later in the show, I want to get your thoughts on why you think that is.
Yeah. So they've gone back, and then so really they have to rely on the Malay vote, to look for the votes. So if you look at the Malay votes, then look at the youth vote. So there are at the moment 2.6 new youth voters registered, and this is where the social media, they get all the information from social media, and their opinions are formed by social media. But who are these 2.6? 60% are Malays. 700,000 are Chinese, and 220,000 are Indians. So the Chinese vote isn't going to add any more, to their seats, because they will just add to the margins, the margins that the opposition will command. The Indian votes are going to go back to the opposition, to the ruling party, and so it's the Malay youth. And then let's look at. So I looked at where the Malay votes are coming from, and in the 90 parliamentary seats where UMNO, commanded in the last elections, of the 90 parliamentary seats, the majority of these seats were gained by the ruling party, and the Party Islam and Anwar's party, the People's Justice Party, they commanded, much fewer seats than that. So they've got to make that inroads into this.
The math is a little tough on this one.
It's tough. And all the polls show that the Malay vote is holding strong, for UMNO.
I want to bring in another guest to the program, joining us now from Malaysia. We're going to call him Paul. That's not his real name. We're going to conceal his real name along with his face for his personal safety. He is the director of the digital war room for the opposition candidate for Anwar Ibrahim. Paul, this campaign has become a real battlefield online, so much so that you're actually concealing your identity on the program. Why is that?
Well, I think there are a lot of challenges that we're facing out here, and these are unprecedented times. Malaysia is going through a time where the hacker attacks and internet access are being blocked within the country. Bloggers are being have warrants or arrest warrants out for them. The opposition right now is doing everything they can to even silence our voice using the internet, and it's a shame.
Shazwina, there are pretty strong racial lines drawn in Malaysian politics. You've got Indian, Chinese, Malay. You had a pretty sobering experience at a very young age about the role race plays in Malaysia. I want you to talk about that, and then tell me whether or not you see this election as a referendum on race-based politics.
So basically, when I was 12, you have to sit for a national exam. And my teacher, who happened to be Chinese, registered me as Chinese due to my Chinese father. But my mother's Malay. And so her main concern was that if I were to be registered to sit for my exams as a Chinese student, I wouldn't be able to get into public universities in Malaysia. And I think that was the moment that it actually struck me that there was this sort of difference, a very clear difference, and it's systematic to the extent that even Malay people know it. I think that this election is perhaps not so much a referendum on race as it was in 2008. I wasn't in Malaysia myself during those elections. I was in Melbourne. I think that race definitely still is a big issue about it, but I've seen a lot, especially on the opposition, there's been a lot more cohesion between what you call the Chinese votes, people who usually vote for DAP, and cohesion among them and supporters for PKR and PAS, which is surprising because, well, it's an Islamic party and they carry the most Malay votes. Just to add on what she's mentioned earlier.
Well, Shashmina, you just made a great point there, and I want to pose it to Toon also with this tweet. Chris Lowe writes in, when you have to fill in your race in official forms, it says something. The double standards of the ruling coalition need to end. What are your thoughts on that?
I think I've been listening to false accusation and slanders here. In Malaysia, I think if one of the Chinese-based, is majority Chinese-based party contest in Malay dominant constituent, this party will lose. But in the United National Coalition, if you see MCA, one of the component party which are dominated by Chinese, if this party contest in the constituent with majority Malays, they can win the seat with the support of the Malays in the coalition. So the DAP, which is depending their votes on the Chinese vote, has been surviving until now because of the Chinese rhetoric and Chinese chauvinism. That's why they can only win in the town area, in the urban area where Chinese are majority voters. It's not. It's different than MIC, which is an Indian-based party, component party in the United Front, and also at the MCA, which are dominated by Chinese in the National Front. They can win in the Malay majority areas because although it is said the country has a race-based politics, but in National Front, we work together and we compromise and we accept and tolerate each other in the party. But whereas in the opposition party, you can see that they instigate anger of the minority and of the other ethnics. This is the problem with Malaysia.
Well, switching it away from race-based politics, because this is not, of course, the only thing our community is interested in. Cindy Liu writes in on Facebook. She says, I think social media has opened up to all kinds of freedoms here in Malaysia, but not so much on race-based policies as it is on highlighting corruption and abuse of power. Issues that are usually behind closed doors are now discussed in the open. Paul, I want to pose that to you, because is the opposition, ready and in position? I'm sorry, I'm being told that we don't have Paul anymore. The Skype has just dropped. Technology will do that to you. Pekun, I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
Do you believe that the opposition is in a place, to handle all of the criticisms of corruption that the ruling party?
The opposition has actually done three things that have really widened their appeal, and that's why they're in a strong position in a good position to go into those elections. Mm-hmm. First of all, they've demonstrated that they're capable of delivering effective governance. In the two most economically dynamic states, Selangor and Penang, and clean governance, and they've delivered. And these are the states they captured in the last elections. So they show that they can do it. Secondly, their pledge to deliver clean governance and to combat corruption, that pledge has resonated very, very deeply with Malaysians across the board who are fed up of business as usual. Mm-hmm. And so this is a pro-opposition vote. And it is, and because all the polls show that these two issues, combating corruption, giving clean and transparent governance and accountable governance, they are more important than cost of living issues, inflation issues, security, crime issues. That's why this talks to the confidence the opposition side is feeling about their chances going to these elections. And thirdly, let's go back to this race-based thing. What is, and as the young viewer said, what the opposition leader, Anwar Ibrahim, is saying that let's end race-based politics where this new economic policy distributes rights based on race, and we're going to end this and not use race as a criteria, but use merit and income. Low-income families, and they happen to be majority with Malays. So in other words, let's move away from a policy that's been in the system for the last 30 years. It's based on race, and that's why we say it can move beyond. So if the opposition comes to power, they'll move beyond a race-based, a political system. However, having said that, the institutions are still race-based. You've got, as Tun Faisal says, a Malay-dominant party, UMNO, you've got the Chinese party, MCA, Indian party in the coalition, ruling coalition, and in the opposition you have the Party Islam that appeals the Muslim Malay vote, Parti Keadilan, which is Anwar's party that appeals the urban middle class Malay vote, and then you've got the DAP that appeals to the Chinese urban vote. So in that sense, I don't think that we can structurally move away from race-based politics until the institutions themselves become multi-ethnic, and we're not seeing that yet.
Tun Faisal, I want to go to you. The opposition has accused your unit specifically of spreading false information. What kind of information have you and your campaign been putting forward to your constituents?
I think for your information, it's contrary. The opposition has been loading a lot of lies and slanders. If you notice, 2 days ago, they talked about indelible ink, which is washable. And we found out when we sent our people down there and checked the situation, the accusation was false. And it was created to instigate anger among the people towards our election committee. If you look at our role is to disseminate information about our policy, the party policy and the government policy, and at the same time we are tasked to engage the young of Malaysian to be close to the government and for them to understand the policy better. Plus, learning from the 2008 election, it seems that we can't only disseminate information and educate the people, but we have to counter the allegation and also slanders by the opposition. We have to come out with answers for some of the
Okay, Tun, I'm going to stop you there, and for our viewers, just so you know, Tun and I have about 4 seconds of a disconnect between each other, so I'm not intentionally cutting him off. But Paul, I want to give you a chance to jump in here and respond to what Nick was saying. I'm sorry, respond to what Tun Faisal was saying.
Well, I think, when we can't advertise on TV, newspaper, we can't do any of these things. Whatever we are trying to get out, whatever message in this so-called democracy, we are facing here as Malaysians, the challenge of basically trying to use every means possible to get the voice out for our message. And, we can sit here all day and argue, but we're not giving the people of Malaysia a fair chance to actually vote. And with already episodes of voter fraud, ink removal on their fingers, the fact that they're possibly even shipping in people to come and vote in some of the rural areas, this is making our challenge here even much more important and much more difficult.
Well, it's interesting that you just mentioned voter fraud. I want to go to Julian Tan in our Hangout. Julian, you recently wrote a post on HuffPost saying, "Dear Malaysia, democracy should be easier." I pulled it up on my screen here. Tell us what happened when you tried to go to vote in London.
So I arrived in London at 9. I took the 7:30 a.m. train from Cambridge, and everything was going fine. It was a huge group of people. I went in, I showed my identity card number, and the lady takes my identity card number and then looks through a list. So this list is supposed to contain all of the names of registered voters, but for some reason my name was not there. So she said my name was not there, and I took out my phone. I took a screenshot of my voter status and I showed it to her, and she had a look very quickly, and she looked through the same pages and my name still wasn't there. So my name wasn't on the record that she had with her And basically what happened was one of the guys in that office came up and he said very bluntly, if his name is not on the register, ask him to escort him out because we don't have time for issues like this. And to be honest, I wasn't so much, upset that my name wasn't on the register because these things happen. I mean, errors are sure to creep up, when you are dealing with such a thing. But I guess it shouldn't be so. I guess what I'm angry about was the way it was handled, in that they just sort of brushed it off when, I clearly took the necessary precautions in order to register myself to vote really early. And, I went there on time and everything. So the lady was about to, the man was about to escort me out, and I was still really adamant on staying there. But the lady who was tending to me was actually really nice. What she did was, she tried to diffuse the tension. She asked, "Did you come far?" And I said, "Yes, I came all the way from Cambridge." And I think that changed a lot because immediately her expression changed. She said, "Oh, you're from Cambridge University? Okay." So she says, "We'll have a look." Asked me to sit down. So I took my seat. The man helping her went with my identity card number.
And then you were able to vote?
Yes, and I was able to vote.
Pekun, we've got about a minute left in the show, but I'm just wondering along those lines, I mean, in terms of the corruption, the Election Commission isn't independent. Who do Malaysians count on to monitor these things and make sure it's a free and fair election?
Well, I think what has, although there is absolutely these concerns and worries that there'll be fraud committed in this election, at the same time, there has been a greater presence of NGOs. They are going to watch the elections very closely, and the Malaysian public, they're aware. And I think now we've got these NGOs who will be watching it very carefully. You've got all this in the social media, there'll be. I've seen it, mobilizing the vote, making sure that they can vote.
So the world is watching in a way that it hasn't.
And also observers from the ASEAN countries.
Okay, we are going to pick up on this conversation in our online post show. So everybody stick around for Stream at stream.aljazeera.com. But before we go, I want to introduce all of you to my friend and colleague Femi Oke, who is joining the Al Jazeera team. Femi, we are so glad to have you.
I am Femi Oke, and I'm so happy to be in the stream. Hello, Lisa. Hello, Malika.
Femi is going to be taking over the hosting duties for the stream starting next week, and I'm going to be getting started on a brand new project for Al Jazeera that I'm really excited about, but it's yet to be publicly announced. So you're all going to have to stay tuned for the details. I'll be on Twitter and the AJE website, though, with updates. Now, Femi is a veteran broadcaster. She's experienced, she's insightful, and she's a whole lot of fun. Femi, you're going to be kicking it off on Monday. What's the plan for the show?
Right, well, in Saudi Arabia right now, there's a series of campaigns to attack domestic violence and try and crack down on it. There's one particular campaign that's gone viral, and we'll be talking about that on Monday and all the other things around the domestic violence issues in Saudi Arabia. So it's going to be relevant to wherever you are in the world, and jump on AJ Stream, at AJ Stream, to send us your tweets and also be on the Facebook page. How am I doing so far, Lisa?
You're doing awesome. I'm pretty sure you can host this show.
Okay.
Hey, one more quick question for you, though, Femi. You love social media. That's why you're so excited about the program. Tell folks a little bit something about you that they may not know yet, even though they may have been following you on Facebook and Twitter.
Well, I don't put it on my Twitter handle, but I am a princess, and I'm a Nigerian princess. I might just drop that in the conversation from time to time. And if there was, Lisa, if there's one thing you could tell me that would help me next week, what would it be?
If you're going to bring bakery to the team, make sure whatever you bring doesn't have nuts, because Dan can't have nuts.
Writing it down, thank you. No nuts.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Don't forget, everyone, we've still got the post show coming up. It's at stream.aljazeera.com, so we'll look forward to seeing you there in about 30 seconds. I'm Lisa Fletcher. Welcome to the Stream's online post show. We're talking about the elections that are upcoming in Malaysia this Sunday and how they are likely to be the closest that we've seen there in 50 years. I want to pick up with Kumaraswaran Sinaya in Kuala Lumpur. Kumaraswaran, something we were talking about a little bit in the main show was this idea that Indian Malays really supported the opposition back in 2008. And what we're seeing now is this shift, that they're sort of going back to the ruling party. And a lot of people that I talked to prior to today's program really didn't have a good explanation for that. What's your thought on that?
You see, Indian support mainly went back to the ruling government after 2008, especially after 2009. After Prime Minister Najib Tun Razak took over the helm, and they have been noticing his sincere efforts to eradicate issues concerning Indian community, especially on the economy and educational issues. He has been sincerely addressing it, and he has formed a special department under his Prime Minister's department to address issues concerning Indians in Malaysia. Despite we have the major Indian political party, the Malaysian Indian Congress, despite of that, Najib took special interest to actually address the Indian issues. So since the issues concerning the Indians have been addressed, I feel that the Indian support has gone back, to the ruling government.
Well, our community, and not surprisingly, is shifting the conversation a little bit back to the focus on social media. We have a tweet here, a Facebook comment from Vincent Tay. He says, social media has certainly helped in this election. It's overcome the problem of state-controlled mainstream media. However, there are problems with baseless accusations being thrown around. People lack accountability. After the election, the people must be able to judge impartially and be accountable to their statements. And not too long ago, we actually got a tweet from Anwar Ibrahim himself. He said, social media has ended the government monopoly on the flow of information, leading to mass awakening of the people, young and old. Pekun, I want to go to you with that. Has social media opened up this avenue, as Malaysians seem to be saying, because traditional media left a void? Right,
absolutely, it's opened up. But what's happening is not only has it made it possible for the opposition and the voters, the young voters who are very, very concerned about the corruption, the abuse of power, the race-based politics that they see UMNO is pursuing, but it's also now opened up the same space for the pro-government people. So it is a lot more difficult now, to figure out. So you have both sides. It's very polarized, very, very partisan on both sides. And so ultimately, I think when the results will show us, will the electorate reward Najib, for the solid economic performance, for reaching out to the Indian voters in the way that he has done successfully? He's given up the Chinese vote, basically, because the Chinese feel that they feel that NUP, the Malaysian Special Rights, have really so disenfranchised them, so marginalized them. They're really angry, and he can't do anything about that. So that or will they punish him and the National Front for the corruption and the money politics and the abuse, the perceived abuse that have accompanied, the economic development policies. So this is it. It's whether it's about are they going to vote on solid policies, or they're going to vote against the politics of money and the politics of corruption and abuse.
Yeah. Paul, one of the things that Pekun mentioned here was how the playing field has more leveled this time around than it was in 2008 with social media. We've read quite a few reports of these cyber troopers that have allegedly been hired by the government to wage some online warfare against the opposition. What do you make of that?
No, this is an unfair battle because of one simple thing. We have digital advertising. You have to understand the government has spent the people's money, an unprecedented almost 50 billion ringgit. That's almost $20 billion. I mean, how can you compete with $20 billion? And we're getting ad buys on YouTube and Microsoft and on Facebook that are unprecedented. And competing with that kind of, advertising is very difficult when they also control mainstream media from every single component. The BN is spending not just online, but what happens is that we could get all the cyber troopers what we could, but the bottom line is that's not going to win the messaging campaign, because what we're talking about is a racist government that its time is up. This one party rule has to stop in Malaysia. The discrimination that has been taking place in our country for so many years has to stop. And someone like Anwar, we view as, our Gandhi, Mandela, as our Dr. King here. We believe that he can champion a coalition government and bring upon the justice. And we're using the internet to do that. I mean, look at me. I have to hide in my own country. I cannot even give you my name because I am guaranteed that after this interview, I will have knocks on the door and we potentially would be tracked by our IP address. We have had DDoS attacks. We have had foreign influence. We've even tracked IP addresses to military bases where they are operating. Now, how do I fight that?
Well, that's a good question. I want to pose that actually to Tun Faisal. I want to give you an opportunity, Tun, to respond to these allegations. I mean, and not just the last bit that Paul was saying, but to all of it. Spending $20 billion of Malay money, the controlled media. Give us your response to those very serious allegations.
Yeah, very serious allegation, and Paul is lying. Why do you need to hide? Because in Malaysia, I think if you look at the Prime Minister, instead of censoring the internet, instead of blocking the access to internet, and we know that when more and more people open up to internet, there might be a repercussion to the present ruling government. But instead of doing so, I think government Najib's Prime Minister Najib has opened up and engaged with the people using internet media. And he not only that, he made an effort to increase the broadband width and give more opportunity to other telecommunication companies to provide internet service. So Najib Razak has been more open to everybody, and Paul is hiding. That is very funny. And for us, like those in machinery, in the United Front machinery, we work on voluntary basis and we compensate on hours that we spend to help the government. But lately, we expose the Red Bean Army, cyber troopers and cyber thugs from DAP, the opposition party, which has more than 50 fake accounts for every each person, and has been paid up to 8,000 per month.
Well, it's this back and forth. It's what you're saying, Tun Faisal. It's what Paul's saying that has our community a little bit discouraged. A tweet from Tak who says, our biggest fear is that this coming election will go down as the dirtiest ever in our nation's history. Shazweena, briefly, how do you feel when you hear this?
I say they're not far off the mark. I think that we're definitely seeing the dirtiest elections, and I think it has a lot to do with the youth vote as well. We got 3 million new voters, 60% under 30 years old. That makes up 25% of the electoral vote, and 48% of them are undecided. So I can't blame them, blame both sides for fighting the cyber war. But it says something about the insidious undercurrents of Malaysian politics, that you have to resort to cyber troopers rather than actual campaigning. I think it says a lot because Pakatan Rakyat only gets maybe 10 minutes of airtime as opposed to, like Paul said, YouTube ads. I can't watch a YouTube clip without getting a BN ad beforehand. It's been this way for the last 2 months. For the last month, sorry. But I think what we should mention also is that there's a very active war being taken by the government against these bloggers and these cyber troopers. You can't say that the solution to a free internet is to block it. What about, there was a blogger last night, Miloswa, when I was talking to a producer. He was being arrested under unknown charges for apparently spreading slander. And this isn't the first time that he's been arrested. There have been other arrests as well. This goes on freely, and it turns out there's only one party that always gets indicted in these cases, and it's never the government.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens this Sunday, and we will, of course, be keeping our eye on it. So stay focused in on our website at streamed@aljazeera.com. That's going to wrap it up for the program. Thanks to all of our guests, especially those coming to us from Kuala Lumpur in the middle of the night. That does it for the stream, but we'll see you back here on Monday.